707 Andrews Tower.
Are you ready? On this episode, welcome to Bucklesberry Lemonade, where true crime meets keen analysis. I'm your host, Lisa, joined by my co-host and handsome husband, Tim. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the unsettling world of female serial killers with a focus on two of the most notorious, Nannie Doss and Dorothea Puente. While often overshadowed by their male counterparts, these women carved out their own chilling legacies with subtle methods and surprising motives. We'll explore what drove Nannie Doss, the Giggling Granny, to murder her loved ones, and how Dorothea Puente, the sweet-looking landlady, concealed her deadly intentions beneath a facade of kindness. Grab your drink and settle in for an eye-opening discussion you won't want to miss.
7. Wow. Good intro, honey.
Well, thank you, baby. What an interesting podcast we have for today.
I mean, it really is. You know, in past podcasts, we did one on North Carolina serial killers, and we talked about Velma Barfield.
Sylvia White.
Sylvia White was a separate podcast. We talked about Miss Blanche Taylor Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that made us start digging a little deeper into the minds of female serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
And Nannie Doss and Dorothea Puente.
And what their motives and what's behind. Men and women, for the most part, kill differently. They kill for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we decided that we would just throw this out there just for some statistics.
Okay.
And like you said, we know that there are some differences, but the motivation, here's some characteristics of female serial killers. Motivation.
Okay.
Female serial killers are often driven by motives such as financial gain. And we're getting ready to go all through that with these two ladies today.
Yes.
Yes. Power or revenge.
Both.
Rather than the sexual gratification that's more common in their male counterparts. And they may also kill to remove perceived burdens or threats.
And I can see that.
Yeah, I can too. It's just so much, seems like with male serial killers, it's a very gory thing. And then female serial killers are going to do things so much differently.
You know why? I think they like to keep things tidy and neat.
Yeah, and that's part of their profiles is their methods, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
Most of their methods, but female serial killers are generally less violent, more subtle. Poisoning is a very common method, and it allows them to kill without a direct confrontation, whereas males are direct confrontation.
Yeah.
And other methods include suffocating or drowning. Their selection, they're more likely to kill people that they know, family members, friends, individuals under their care. This could be gas.
Yeah, honey. I love you, baby.
And this has been. Well, I'm watching you after this episode.
You see a lot of. Yeah. I love this stuff. So.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. So, and then in contrast to male serial killers who often target strangers, Their psychological profile is different. Many female serial killers um, exhibit traits of psychopathy or sociopathy, and they have a complete lack of empathy. They will put on a front and pretend to have empathy, but most do not. And, women tend to be more empathetic, sympathetic. They have a high level of manipulation ability. They can really manipulate you. A superficial charm, meaning until you start to get to know them, you see past that charm. And they usually have histories of high abuse and trauma, which can contribute to their criminal behavior. And
Yeah, and
interestingly enough, in the
yes.
two women we're covering today, they
I
did.
almost
They
feel sorry
suffered through
for them.
horrific.
If they hadn't have been killers,
Yeah.
I'd feel sorry
Yeah.
for them because
Yeah.
they did. They as children. Oh my gosh.
Suffered. And we'll go through that. Appearance and behavior. Female serial killers often appear nurturing and trustworthy, but they are not. It helps them gain power. It helps them gain access and power over their victims. They may take on roles that allow them to be close or vulnerable, such as caregivers, nurses, or nannies. And in part of my research, did you know 39% of all female serial killers come from some health related field in a caregiver sort of role, either professionally trained or through schooling or self-care or whatever.
That's how most women are. I mean, they want to nurture, make people feel better. So that would be in that capacity.
Most female serial killers are in their 30s to 50s. They often come from backgrounds where, like we said, they've experienced significant trauma or neglect, and that contributes to their behavior. And I believe that certainly with both the ladies today, Nannie Doss suffered a severe traumatic incident or accident that we'll go over, and she was not allowed to heal from it.
No.
And then we know Dorothea Puente's, the notes highlight horrific abuse as a child.
Yes. Oh my.
Doesn't excuse their later behavior, but
no,
it's
but
just,
you can when you hear what happened, you can understand why they had the way they felt about different people and different like men in general.
Oh yeah. It's just it's crazy.
It is very.
Psychological traits. Okay. We're getting into what the FBI would profile, how they would profile a serial killer. Occupation, we just talked about that. They usually
need of control.
Yep. Strong need for control. But usually in occupation wise, they're in a caregiving role. Psychological traits. They have a high trait of being able to manipulate, a strong need for control, like you said, capacity to appear normal, even likable to everyone around them. That's that superficial charm they talked about. They may have a history of relationship problems, often involving significant conflicts or abusive dynamics. And despite that, they always come out smelling like a rose.
Oh, isn't it sweet?
Mm-hmm. Crime patterns. Female serial killers often plan their murders very carefully, taking steps to avoid detection. They might kill over a longer period of time, and in ways makes the deaths appear natural or accidental.
In both of these? I mean,
in both of these have a very high kill rate. I mean, count. And,
Mm-hmm.
they're truly prolific. It's amazing. Um, History. Female serial killers have a history of previous criminal behavior, often related to fraud, theft, or other nonviolent criminal activities. However, they may not have a prior history of violence before they started killing. And it as we dive a little deeper here into Mrs. Doss and Mrs. Puentes, it's does this not apply to them?
It does. It
It is
really
spot
does.
on. Spot on.
Everything. Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's just but the way the FBI and law enforcement they take these characteristics and they use them to help identify and apprehend female serial killers.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, they do, and it's crazy, but it seems like not all, because got just as many crazy women as you do men. But if you notice, a lot of women they kill because they've been traumatized in some way or another, and they never could come back from it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about, the two we're getting ready to go over,
Mm-hmm.
severe, severe.
Yes. Yeah. It's a wonder they didn't turn out to be serial killers. Now, in this day and time, the
Yeah.
odds would be in their favor.
Well, like you learn in psychology and things like that, environment plays a
Plays a
huge part.
big part. Yes, it does.
And as we dive into Nannie Doss, you're going to have to pronounce it, the syndrome that we know she had, the Munchausen. How do you say it?
Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah, yeah. All in a need to have acceptance and attention
Yes.
in a positive way compared to the attention
Yeah.
she'd been getting.
Yes. I mean, but it just, mm, it's sickening and it's sad.
Very
But,
sad.
she had no upbringing whatsoever. I mean, when
No,
you hear her story, yes.
harsh, very harsh. And
Yes.
it goes back to both of these ladies grew up in a time period, especially Mrs. Dawes. Women were treated like property,
Mm-hmm. That's
and
true.
that's very unfortunate. I mean, violence has played a very heavy part in both of these women's upbringing, and
Yeah.
to their detriment and several other people's detriment over time. So,
Mm-hmm. This is true.
all right, guys, that leads us up to our very first commercial. Into female serial killers, Nannie Doss and Dorothea Puente. Stay tuned. We'll be back in. All right. The music stops in 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to Bucklesberry Lemonade. I'm your host, Lisa. Please like, share, and subscribe this video, the Bucklesberry Lemonade podcast, and like this video and love our page. Give us some love. Now let's dive right into it. How about
All
Ms.
right.
Nannie Doss?
Woo.
She's
Nannie
our number one candidate. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Nannie Doss, born Nancy Hazel, November 4th, 1905. And she left this world on June 2nd, 1965.
And
Nannie.
she was responsible for the deaths of 11 people.
Yep, between 1927 and 1954.
She was also referred to as the Giggling Granny, the Lonely Hearts Killer, and the Black Widow, and the Lady Bluebeard.
Yep. And I told you, I shared it with you, that the interview that was done with her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was. Ooh,
Woo.
yeah. Yeah, that's what it was. Yes.
It's an
No,
interview, guys. It can be found on YouTube, but basically,
it's Nannie Doss interview. Look it up. I don't know who. I can't
yeah.
cite them, but it's a good interview. Wait till you see her.
Ooh. And
Yes.
it will give you chills.
Yes. Chills, chills, and
You
chills.
you could tell the interviewer was worried. Nannie Doss will kill your ass. So
We had technical difficulties for a second. Please stand by. Mm.
a second.
He,
All
he,
right, guys. So much for the technical difficulties. That's
my 100-pound uh
Bulldog.
sweet sweet bully, he had decided he was going to unplug me from talking. I guess he thinks I need to be quiet. But it's all taken care of now.
Yeah.
Where were we?
So, in talking about Nannie Doss, we know she confessed to the murders, all of them, and sometime around October 1954. And this was shortly after her fifth husband died in a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And it was revealed later that she'd killed 4 husbands, 2 children, one of her sister's children, her mother, her grandson,
2 grandsons,
2 grandsons, and that's
her
horrible.
mother-in-law.
Yeah. And you know, and go back to that interview. Miss Nannie, she's crazy.
She was crazy.
Tell us a little bit about her early life.
She was born November the 4th, 1905, in Blue Mountain, Alabama. She was born to Lou and James F. Hazel. She had 1 brother and 3 sisters. Both Nannie and her mother hated James. He was a controlling and abusive father and husband. He would force his children to work on the family farm, and he refused to let them go to school, which that's why Nannie had very poor academic performances. I'm not sure. It doesn't say if she ever finished any kind of schooling.
No, I couldn't find anything. So in my notes, I didn't have anything for you.
That's what I didn't see. I couldn't see anything. And she was 7 and taking a train with her family to visit relatives in southern Alabama. And this is when she hit her head. The train abruptly stopped, and she hit her head on a metal bar. And she's for years after, she had suffered severe headaches, blackouts, and depression.
Yeah.
She blamed these and her mental instability on that accident. And
do you know that her father would not allow her medical treatment?
I know, yeah.
He gave her a few days, and she was put right back to work on the field.
He didn't. He said no. He didn't want no. If it took time away from the field.
And again, it goes back to treat it like property. You're a child. You're female.
Yeah.
This is where you're most valuable, and it doesn't matter that you're 7 years old. You're battered and bruised from this train wreck.
Yeah.
You're going back in the field. And like I say in every episode, I mean, Mr. James Hazel, you are indeed a sack of shit. Anyway, go ahead.
A very big sack of shit. And her favorite hobby during childhood was reading her mom's romance magazines and dreaming of her own romantic future, like every little girl does.
Yeah. And you see where this is starting to set the seed. She's got violence in the home. She's being beat for not working in the field. She's
Furthermore, it was the Lonely Hearts column that was her favorite.
yeah, yeah. And she's being beat in the field. Her escape is these trashy romance novels.
And then, to make matters worse, her father forbade his daughters to wear makeup and attractive clothing, as he believed it would prevent them from being essayed
Yeah.
by men. He also forbade them to go to dances and other social events.
But we do know from our research that she was essayed by men.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Her own relatives. Her own relatives.
Yes.
When they would come to visit, she would more often than not, be molested.
Yes, she would.
And you can't help but speculate, was her father, James Hazel. We don't know that he was a part of it. It was never mentioned, but did he know this was going on?
And if he did, no, I read somewhere. I don't remember where. I might look it up. Maybe I doubt I can find it, but if I can. That he knew this happened and he blamed her for it.
Yes, I do remember that. He blamed her for being provocative.
Yes, and this is another reason why he's a big sack of shit.
Yep, he gets our sack of shit award. I mean, don't get us wrong, Nannie Doss gets the same award, but it goes back to what we were talking about. If you're looking through the profile and the characteristics, we've got early trauma. She wasn't allowed to heal from it. Then we couple that with sexual or being essayed. Now we've got her fantasy part is taken over. She's realized she's got an escape in reading novels.
Yeah.
And it gives her a way out. So we know that she's first married at age 16. She married a Charlie Braggs. Charlie was 17, and he was her co-worker at a linen factory. And her father approved the marriage after 4 months of dating. And the reason he approved it is because Nannie's psychological outburst from the trauma of her head injury on the train.
And not getting proper medical and psychological treatment from it.
Yeah, she's starting to show out a little more because she's having violent outbursts. So, like a good little businessman, he finds a way to take care of, profit from it and get rid of one of his assets that's no longer performing, because that's how he looked at her. So she marries Charlie Braggs. He's her co-worker at a linen factory. Her father did give the approval after 4 months of dating for their marriage. Braggs.
Well, I was going to read something in her words.
Go ahead.
It said Nannie later wrote, so this is quotes in quotes, "I married as my father wished in 1921 to a boy I only knowed about 4 or 5 months, who had no family, only a mother who was unwed, and who had taken over my life completely when we were married. She never seen anything wrong with what she done, but she would take spells. She would not let my own mother stay all night."
Yeah.
Quote.
And she also forbid Nannie from reading her romance novels as well. Well, Charlie was a mama's boy and would take his mama's side at every turn and neglect Nannie, which set a fire under her. So, and she would, like you said, her mother-in-law would take spells and have fits of anger or whatever. And, but Charlie's mom took up a lot of his attention and would limit Nannie's activities, like we talked about. You can't read the novels.
Yeah. Yeah, she couldn't.
So the marriage produced 4 daughters from 1923 to 1927.
Yep. And this stressed out Nannie, and she started drinking. And her casual smoking habit became a heavy addiction. They were both unhappy partners, correctly suspected each other of infidelity.
Yeah. And we both know
he often disappeared for days on end.
Days on end. So, now, here's where we get things starting to change a little bit.
Yep.
We know from research that Nannie began to theorize or fantasize in her mind that the two younger girls, the middle girls, she didn't care as much for. Now, the older child she loved very much, the firstborn, Melvina, she loved her. Okay. But then, as Charlie has began to lay out more and more and more, he comes home and finds out that his two middle girls are dead from food poisoning. So we know that there was no autopsies done. Nannie was not suspected in anything. She was treated like a very caring and doting mother.
Yes, she was.
Because she's living in the house with her dominant mother-in-law. Her husband is a drunk and he's laid out whoring around. So Nannie gets all the attention and praise. And guess who's responsible for the first two children's murder?
No, not the middle two, not the first.
Yeah, the middle two. Yeah.
Let's keep on going. Let's don't get ending away.
Well, I think everybody knows where it's leading.
Yes, I think they do, but let's don't give it away.
At some point in time, Charlie Braggs took the firstborn daughter, Melvina, and fled, leaving the newest child, Florine, behind. Now, interestingly enough, and I wonder how, Charlie's mom dies not much longer after Nannie took a job in a cotton mill to support Florine and herself. So now you've got two middle children who have passed from food poisoning.
And she still got one.
Two.
One, but it didn't Braggs have the other one?
He took the other one.
He took the other one.
But she still got the infant. But
yeah.
Mama-in-law, she dies under some mysterious circumstances too. But because Nannie has gotten all the attention, her husband's run off, she's lost two children, and now, lo and behold, here she is trying to take care of her husband's responsibility, his mother. She has passed. Nannie is starting to love this attention.
Very much so. Very much so.
So we know she took a job at a cotton mill. Charlie shows back up, and this time he shows up with the oldest child, Melvina. Go ahead.
And a divorcee.
In the summer of 1928.
So that was scandalous.
Yeah. Now, soon after they divorce, and Nannie takes her two children back to her mother's home. So now, Charlie Braggs always maintained he left her because he was afraid of her.
I saw that. I wanted to, and you know what? I would have him too.
Well, looking at that interview, that some bitch better been afraid of her. He needed to be scared of her.
Well, why did he marry her in the first place?
He was scared.
And then years, I don't know how long, I can't remember how long after Yes.
almost a year. The summer of 1928 is when all this happened with her divorce.
And then
And
she has a second husband. She gets married a second time.
mhm,
And her second husband was Robert Franklin Harrelson. They met and married in 1929. They lived in Jacksonville with Melvina and Florine. After a few months, she discovered that he was,
yeah,
guess what?
yeah.
An alcoholic.
Mm,
And he had a criminal record for assault.
yeah.
Despite this, the marriage lasted 16 years.
It's a long time, isn't it?
That is a long time. That is a very long time for her.
Yeah. For her, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, she didn't kill him right to start with.
Mm. Well,
Uh-huh.
around this time in 1943, Melvina, the oldest daughter, gave birth to Robert Lee Haynes. Another baby followed 2 years later, but soon died afterwards.
I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness.
Exhausted from the labor and groggy from the ether, Melvina thought she saw her mother stick a hat pin within the baby's ear.
I'd have got up and I'd have choked my mama.
Now, keep in mind that at this point, Nanny got all this attention when her first two children, or her first middle children, died. She got all the attention when Charlie was hanging out drunk. She got all the attention when mother-in-law mysteriously died. And now here we are with Melvina's children. And Melvina's her favorite. Some of the speculation is she began to worry that Melvina may get trapped in the same kind of life that she had. And out of her love for Melvina, this is what happened.
Yes, a sick, twisted. See, she's a sick woman. I have no sympathy for her, but I see where it started.
Yeah.
But she's a very, very sick woman, and I would, if that were my.
So Melvina asked her husband and her other sister for clarification, and Nanny had told them the baby was dead, and they noticed she was in fact holding a hat pin. However, the doctors could not give a positive explanation.
Then the grieving parents, like, a lot of parents do when they're grieving, they drift apart, and she started dating a soldier. But guess who disapproved?
Yeah, because by all intent purposes, Melvina, Nanny's daughter, had married well.
Mm-hmm.
But she disapproved of the soldier. And while Melvina was visiting her father after a particularly nasty fight with her mother, her son, Robert, the firstborn, Melvina's firstborn,
yes,
died mysteriously.
Mm.
She had baked him cookies.
Yes, and he loved the cookies that his nanny
loved the cookies.
Oh,
she had filled them with rat poison. Put little Robert to bed after feeding him cookies and went to sleep.
I take that back. What her daddy did, he is a sack of shit. What she did, she is just pure evil. Yep. That is worse than.
Nanny gets. That's right. Nanny gets a sack of shit award. Sure.
And
that this was her way of getting back at Melvina.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But that's her. But that she was supposed to have loved that grandchild.
Yeah, and Melvina. Yeah, and under a normal set of love, you couldn't have violated that. And this happened July 7th, 1945. And the death was diagnosed as asphyxia from unknown causes.
Causes.
Yeah. 2 months later, Nannie collected a $500 life insurance check
She had
she
on the
had
board.
taken out on Robert.
I'm
So
telling
now,
you, that's sick.
but now you see it developing, okay? She's already figured out she can get attention, and people will, oh, poor Nannie, you've lost your children, you've lost your husband, you've lost your mother-in-law, now you're losing grandchildren. But now she's figured out, hey, I can profit from this. $500. $500 in 1945 was a
a
nice
lot of
little chunk
money.
of change, wasn't it?
It was.
So now in 1945, Nannie's second husband, Robert Frank Harrelson, came home drunk and he SA'd Nannie.
And the next day, guess what Nannie did?
Yep.
She put rat poison in his corn whiskey jar, and he died that evening.
Now, it seems Harrelson had a bad habit of burying.
Let's see. Let me bury my pet.
Yeah. Burying.
Yes.
His liquor, his moonshine. He would bury it.
He would put it underground.
Yeah. Well, this particular day, much to his eventual dismay and much to Nannie's excitement, while digging around in the garden planting flowers, she found it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she filled it with rat poison. Now, when the doctor came later that evening after he had died, after Harrelson, her husband, had died, he asked for the jar because he wanted to sip her to himself. But Nannie, being smart, had washed the jar completely out, and it looked like he had just drank it all to the last drop.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's getting smart. She's figuring this stuff out.
Oh, yeah. They go to great lengths to cover their tracks.
Yes, they do. And I just find that very interesting.
I do too.
All right, guys, we're coming up on our second commercial break. And my lovely wife, if you'll lead us out.
I said we'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Awesome. Stops in 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back, everyone. And let us continue. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It would do us a huge favor.
Absolutely, guys.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Harrelson.
Her second husband, Mr. Harrelson, he's gone. He's just gone. But then she married later on, and she met her third husband, Arlie Lanning, through another Lonely Hearts column. While traveling in Lexington, North Carolina. And she married him 3 days later.
And it looks like Miss Nannie has a pattern or a type. Yeah. Because Artie was just like her previous husbands, an alcoholic womanizer.
But this time the cards had changed. She was the one who often disappeared, and for months on end. But home, when she was home, she played the doting housewife. And when he died of what was said to be heart failure, The townspeople, they supported her at his funeral.
Yeah,
Of
they
course,
did.
they did.
Well, but she's learned to play the part at this point.
Yes.
I can't stay there. He's womanizer, he's alcoholic, he's beating me. I'll leave home for months on end.
Yeah.
I'm visiting someone that's sick, and I'm probably murdering them too.
Probably so. There's probably more we just don't know about.
Yeah. Guys, we know that she had at least 11 victims, and her crime spanned from 1927 to 1954 that we know of.
Yes.
That we know of.
Soon after the funeral, the couple's house had been left to the deceased sister, burned down.
Mm-hmm.
But the insurance money went where?
To Nannie.
Miss Nannie herself.
And nobody questioned the thing.
But she quickly banked it. And after his mother died, Lanning's mother died, in her sleep, she left North Carolina and ended up at her sister Dovey's home. She was bedridden, and soon after Nannie's arrival, well, she died.
I'm telling you, man. It's like,
when she
come
shows
on, guys.
up.
Y'all need to put two and two together.
But guess what? Yeah, she was yet again looking for another husband.
Yeah.
She joined a dating service called the Diamond Circle Club.
Doesn't that sound like some network marketing stuff from back in the 80s? Welcome to the Diamond Circle Club.
Yes.
If you bring in two people who bring in two people.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll bring in two people who'll bring in two more, and that's how you will make your money.
And that is how she met Richard L. Morton
of Jamestown, North Carolina. They married in 1952 in Emporia, Kansas.
Yep.
And he didn't have a drinking problem, but he was very adulterous.
Yeah, he liked the ladies.
Before she poisoned him, she poisoned her mother, Louise, in January 1953 when she came to live with them.
Yeah.
Morton died 3 months later on May 19th, 1953.
Interestingly, her father had died around the same period of time.
And she was mad because she didn't get a chance to kill him too.
Yeah. She wanted to get him. So instead,
she got her mama.
She got Lulu. Took Lulu out.
She got her mama. Mm-hmm.
So we know that Richard Morton died 3 months later on May 19th, 1953. Then Nannie marries poor Samuel Doss of Tulsa, Oklahoma in June 1953. Doss was a minister who had lost his family to a tornado in Arkansas. And right off the bat, guess what Samuel didn't like?
Those burn romance novels.
You reading those trashy romance novels?
That his wife just adored. He was admitted to the hospital with flu-like symptoms. Imagine that.
Yeah.
In the hospital, all they did was they diagnosed a severe digestive tract infection. He was treated and released on October the 5th. He died October the 12th, 1954.
See, Blanche Taylor Moore would have fed his ass a chicken sandwich.
Of course she would have. But Miss Nannie, she killed him that evening in her rush to collect the $2,000 life insurance policy she had taken out on him. This sudden death alerted his doctor, who very smartly ordered an autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And the autopsy revealed, guess what?
A large amount
arsenic. And then that's when she was arrested.
Bless her heart.
But before that, I think, didn't she go somewhere to meet somebody else? I've read that somewhere.
Yeah, there was some. You're right. I wish I'd have remembered to put that in the notes. There was somebody else.
That's who turned her
was working
in.
on. Yeah, she was working on somebody else.
Because he said that all she was wanting to do about rushing them living in together, talking about life insurance and this getting married. And he said that he thought that she seemed kind of familiar. And he looked at the 6 or 6:30 news. Excuse me. And
that's
they did not. Oh, okay. Wrong person then. Okay.
Yeah.
Oops. I'm jumping ahead.
They're so similar though.
They are. You'll see
so
that.
Similar.
I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I'm about to give some vital secrecies away.
So Nannie confessed to killing 4 of her husbands, her mother,
her sister, grandson, and mother-in-law.
Yeah. But she didn't say she killed her 2 children.
No, she didn't. Or
the other grandchild either. State of Oklahoma centered its case only on Samuel Doss.
I wonder why.
I think they had more information on that. They had more evidence to convict her. And you notice, if you remember when I shared that interview to you, she even denied killing her husband.
Yeah. Okay.
So she was prosecuted by J. Howard Edmondson, who later became governor of Oklahoma.
And then she pled guilty on the 17th, 1955 of May.
Mm-hmm.
And she was sentenced to life imprisonment.
The state did not pursue the death penalty due to her gender.
Yes. That's interesting.
Yep. She was never charged with any of the other deaths. And she
died from leukemia in the hospital ward of the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in 1965.
She's buried at Oak Hill Memorial Park in McAlester, Oklahoma.
Wow.
Giggling Granny, because after her initial arrest, she would tend to giggle if asked questions. Either nervousness or pure damn excitement over all the attention.
Yeah.
So that is something. Nannie Doss, wow. Wonder how many people she really killed.
I wonder. Those are the ones they didn't charge her with. Wow.
Yeah. There's no telling. There really is no.
Because, I'm sure she did all of the ones that were said here.
Yeah.
She didn't. She's got to answer for them. She's already answered for them.
Yeah. Sad.
It is very sad.
So with that brings us to Dorothea
Puente.
Born January 9th, 1929. Met her end on this earth on March 27, 2011. She was also known as the Death House Landlady.
Wow.
And she was convicted of 3 murders, but they feel she probably committed at least 9, if not more. And she was active, as far as they know, from 1982 to 1988. But there is some speculation. So she was 82 at the time of her passing. So we know she was born to Trudy Mae Yates and Jesse James Gray. Both parents were alcoholics.
Of course.
Imagine that. Puente's father repeatedly threatened to kill himself in front of his children. He passed of tuberculosis in 1937. Her mother, who worked as a sex worker,
Oh, that is so sad.
lost custody of her children in 1938 and died in a motorcycle accident by the end of the year. Dorothea and her siblings were soon sent to an orphanage where her horrific
Essay
essay would begin. So how old was Dorothea when she first married?
She was 16 in 1945. And it was to a soldier named Fred
McFaul.
Faul. I think that's right.
Yeah.
And he had just returned from the Pacific Theater of World War II. They had had 2 daughters between 1946 and 48. And Puente sent one child to live with relatives in Sacramento and placed the other for adoption. Oh my goodness. She also suffered a miscarriage.
Wonder what that was. One goes to live with relatives and the other one has to go up for adoption. I wonder, you know, we talked about, we know that Nannie Doss had a favorite child.
Yeah.
You reckon, was that the case here, or was that just a certain set of circumstance?
I don't know. Maybe they can only take one. I'd have found a way to take 2.
Yeah.
Maybe she had a favorite. I don't know. I don't know.
Makes you wonder.
But she also suffered a miscarriage.
Yeah, she sure did. So we know that in 1948, Dorothea was arrested for purchasing women's accessories using forged checks in Riverside, California. She pleaded guilty to 2 counts of forgery, served 4 months in jail and 3 years in probation. 6 months after her release, she left Riverside. Later that year, Puente's first husband left her.
Well, excuse me, in 1952, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Puente allegedly, you know how that alleged goes, married merchant seaman Axel Brand Johansson in San Francisco, where she created a fake persona. And she called herself Taya Singola. I cannot even pronounce the last name. Could you help me, please?
Niardaia.
I don't
know. Anyway, Aarda. I'm sorry, guys.
A Muslim woman of Egyptian and Israeli descent.
Like you couldn't look at her and say, your ass is white.
Yeah.
But anyway.
They had a turbulent marriage, and she took advantage of his frequent trips to sea by inviting men to their home and gambling his money away. Of course, it's all about the money.
Yeah. But again, from a psychological point, the points we went over earlier, you can see. You can see where this is shaping up.
I know.
Well, guys, we are coming up on the top of the hour at our 1 hour mark. And we will be right back. After 2 minutes and 2 seconds, thank you so much for staying tuned to the Bucklesberry Lemonade podcast as we dive into the making of serial killers that are female serial killers.
Music ends in 3, 2, 1. Hi, and welcome back. I'm your host Lisa, and my co-host is Tim. Wow.
All right, I got a promotion today, guys. I am the new host of Bucklesberry Lemonade.
Yes, you are. But please like, share, and subscribe. Regardless, it's not my fault. It's Labor Day weekend.
Absolutely, guys. Hopefully, we'll have this up for you on Labor Day, if
Like,
not before.
we'll have it up hopefully by tonight, this evening.
Thank you so much, guys. You've grown our channel so much, and we really
Yes.
appreciate you. Thank you. Please
Yes.
keep liking, sharing, and subscribing.
And
with
please,
that,
please, let's get back to Miss Puentes.
all right.
She was arrested in 1960 for owning and operating a bookkeeping firm as a front for a brothel in Sacramento.
Yep. So you can see how now she's learned this from her mother. Remember, her mom was a prostitute.
Yes, she did. She was found guilty, and she was sentenced to 90 days in the Sacramento County Jail.
Yep.
In 1961, Johansson had Puente briefly committed to DeWitt State Hospital after a binge of drinking, lying, criminal behavior, and suicide attempts. While there, they died.
Wonder what all she done during that little stretch of time, you know.
Well, anyway, I don't know, but that while there, the doctors, they diagnosed her as a pathological liar with an unstable personality.
You know not.
Of course not. Never. They divorced. Oh, go ahead, baby. You go this time.
Puente and Johansson divorced in 1966, although she continued to use Johansson's name for some time following their separation. She then assumed the identity of Sharon Johansson. Not Scarlett Johansson, but Sharon Johansson.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And this time she wanted to hide her delinquent behavior and portrayed herself as a devout Christian woman.
And she established her reputation as a caregiver, providing young women with a sanctuary from poverty and abuse without charge.
You see already she's preying on the innocent.
Mm-hmm.
She was preyed on. Now she's returning the favor. So, you know, it's one of those things we talk about it all the time. You know, sack of shit is as a sack of shit does.
Yep.
But at the same time, you know, it's that age old story. Hey, you're in prison. Why are you in prison? Well, my dad was in prison. He was a convict. And then his brother, why are you a lawyer? Well, my dad was in prison.
It's what you make of it.
It's what you make out of it. So at this point in 1968, Dorothea married Roberto Jose Puente. After 16 months, they separated. Dorothea cited domestic abuse. She attempted to serve him with a divorce petition, but he fled to Mexico. Their divorce was not actually finalized to 1973. So who was whooping whose ass in this relationship?
I think it was the other way around, especially if he fled.
Yeah, I think Dorothea was handing him his ass. So
I think so.
So she
filed a restraining order in 75.
Yeah. The two continued to have a turbulent relationship, and she did indeed file a restraining order in 1975. She continued to use Puente as her surname for more than 20 years.
Well, following her divorce, she focused on running a boarding house located near you. Really. Located near 15th and F Street in Sacramento. She established herself as a genuine resource to the community to aid alcoholics, homeless people, and the mentally ill by holding Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and assisting individuals to sign up to receive Social Security benefits.
Well, you remember in the research that the local social service were referring patients to her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It goes to show you, I mean, she was trying to change her public image to that of a responsible older matron.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that she would do, she would hold the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and assist individuals to sign up to receive Social Security benefits. But her public image, she did this. She began to act as a respectable older person. She would put on older clothing, wear large glasses. She wouldn't dye her gray hair. In other words, she was older, but she would portray herself as being older than she actually was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
So
she also established herself as a respected member of the local Hispanic community.
Yeah.
She would fund charities, scholarships, and radio programs.
Mm-hmm.
This is where she met her next husband and married him, Pedro Angel. How do you say that last one?
Montalvo.
Maybe. Yes. He left the relationship a week after their marriage. I wonder why.
Abruptly left. I'll tell you why.
He got scared.
He got scared. Because when you see videos of her, just like with Nannie Doss, it becomes very apparent. Yeah. I'm willing to bet you Dorothea didn't take nothing of nobody. I'm willing to bet you when she got to a certain age, she's like, I'm through taking anybody's shit.
You can bet that.
Yep. So on December 21st, 1978, Dorothea was convicted of illegally cashing 34 state and federal checks that belonged to her tenants. She was given 5 years probation and ordered to pay $4,000 in restitution. And that was in 1978. So this leads us to
January 16th. On January 16th, 1982, Puente picked up Malcolm McKenzie, 74, from a bar and took him back to his apartment.
Yeah.
He reported that she had slipped something into his drink before robbing him of coins, watches, and other jewelry, including a diamond ring belonging to his mother, which she removed from his finger while he was incapacitated.
And you see what's happening right here?
It's escalating.
It's escalating, but Malcolm McKenzie, he's 74 years old. At 74, he should know better.
Well, he should know better. He's an alcoholic and a womanizer, which is what she's attracted to.
Well, not only that, he is thinking, hey, I'd give this a whirl. He might be 74. He's not learned anything in his 74 years. I mean, he doesn't deserve what happened to him anyway.
No, not at all.
Okay. So on April 28th, 1982, Ruth Monroe, 61, she was found dead due to respiratory depression caused by a massive overdose of codeine.
Oh.
Yeah. So while Malcolm got away, Miss Ruth did not. And she met her end by a massive overdose of codeine. She is reported to be in good health when she arrived at Puente's home just over 2 weeks prior to her death. However, by April 25th, she had told her friend, I'm so sick, I feel like I'm going to die. Monroe's death was originally ruled to be an undetermined dose, but later classified as a homicide. It's a lot of codeine.
And then on May 16th, 1982, Dorothy Osborne, 49, found checks, credit cards, and other items missing 8 hours after Puente visited her home and prepared her a drink.
Mm-hmm. See, Dorothea don't play.
No, if she is around, you don't need to leave nothing out.
She is indeed the death landlady. So she's noticed all this stuff. I mean, she's knocked her out with some kind of concoction and went through her stuff, took her checks, credit cards, and other items missing. And she was
Mm-hmm.
out for 8 hours. Crazy. In July 1982, Dorothea was convicted of 3 grand theft charges. She was sentenced to serve 5 years in prison, state parole, until March 21st, 1986. Her federal parole sentence was extended another 2 years until 1990. During her incarceration, she began corresponding with Everson Theodore Gilmuth, a 77-year-old retiree from Oregon. So now you got one of those original, what's that show you love to watch so much?
Original
90
Day Fiance.
Yeah, but when they're incarcerated.
Oh, what is the name of that?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes, I can't think of it right now.
So at the beginning of September in 85, Gilmuth came to Sacramento with his truck and trailer, and he arrived at Puente's boarding house on September 9th, 1985, after serving only half her sentence. Dorothea was released from prison. And who picked her up? Well, that would be Theodore Gilmuth and Ricardo or Dorcia. And I'm sorry. Okay. O-R-D-O-R-I-C-A. Okay.
A close friend
Mm-hmm.
who lived with his family in the downstairs flat at 1426 F Street.
Yeah. So, October 1985, Dorothea wrote to Gilman's sister, informing her that they were to be married on November the 2nd of the same year in 1985. Short time later, Dorothea hired a handyman, Ismael Corasaco Flores, to remodel and asked him to build a 6-foot by 30-inch by 30-inch storage box. She agreed to give Gilmuth's truck and $800 as payment. The day after he completed the box, he returned to find the box nailed shut. Dorothea asked Flores to help her take the box, which now weighed approximately 300 pounds, to a storage location.
Wow.
But they ended up dumping the box near a river about an hour away from Sacramento. So what happened on December 28th, 1998?
It was determined that Gilmuth was the previously unidentified body discovered by fishermen alongside the Sacramento River on January 1st, 1986.
Yep.
His body was wrapped in numerous plastic bags and covered with a bed sheet held in place by electric tape. Mothballs and blue toilet deodorizer were also found inside the box. They later discovered that his death, after his death, that she had mailed fake letters and cards to his sister in an attempt to make her believe he was still alive. She also forged his signature on his truck's certificate title and continued cashing Gilmuth's benefit checks until 86 of July.
I mean, they're corresponding. He's living in Oregon. He shows up with his truck and all his belongings. And it's just a matter of time. He is dead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
I mean, men at this point are a means to an end. Anybody is at this point. So,
Yep.
in the fall of 1986, Betty Mae Palmer, who was 78 at that time, arrived at Puente's boarding house. On October 14th, 1986, Dorothea obtained a California ID card with her photo and Palmer's name. 2 months later,
Oh.
the mailing address on Mrs. Betty Mae Palmer's Social Security checks was changed to Puente's F Street address, whereas Dorothea began forging Mrs. Palmer's signature and cashing nearly $7,000 worth of her benefits checks that belonged to Mrs. Palmer in November of 1988.
Oh,
Palmer's partially dismembered body was discovered in a shallow hole in Dorothea's front yard. Her head, hands, and lower legs have never been found. Toxicology reports reveal the presence of doxylamine, an over-the-counter antihistamine, as well as haloperidol. I can't pronounce that.
I can't either.
HALOPERIDOL and flurazepam, both of which were previously prescribed to Mrs. Betty Mae Palmer. Mrs. Palmer was identified on January 24th, 1989 through comparison to previous medical x-rays.
And then on October the 21st of 86, Puente summoned a notary to the hospital room, excuse me, of Lenore Carpenter, 78, following a flurazepam overdose. Flurazepam. She was given power of attorney over Carpenter and began cashing her Social Security checks. Just 10 days later.
Mm-hmm.
December, after Carpenter was released from the hospital, she went to live with Miss Dorothea. Once again, she returned to the hospital, and just a few weeks after, she was discharged. In February of 87, she disappeared. In November of 1988, her body was found in the southeastern corner of Puente's yard. Toxicology reports of Miss Carpenter's brain tissue revealed the presence of codeine, diazepam, and flurazepam.
Back to that codeine.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you, she just didn't play. So now we move to 1987. In February, James Gallup, 62, he moved into Miss Dorothea's boarding home. This is then we fast forward to July 20th, 1987. A potentially malignant tumor was found in Gallup's colon. He agreed to further testing, but later Dorothea contacted his doctor's office, notifying them that he had gone to Los Angeles indefinitely. Gallup's body was found buried under a gazebo in Miss Dorothea's yard in November 1988. Toxicological testing of his brain and liver revealed the presence of several different drugs.
Gosh.
Now, This is a fella, his family came looking for him. This guy had a history of mental illness. And so
she should have known.
Yeah, this didn't fly right with his family right off the bat. So this is part of her undoing. So that takes us down to
July of 87.
Go ahead.
Eugene Gamble, 58. He was found unalived of an apparent suicide. having overdosed on tryptamine and ethanol. Puente, who was Gamel's landlady, said he had a history of suicide attempts. Oh dear, she knew it all then, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
She was never charged with his murder.
That
He
means a
was
history of trying to kill him.
yeah, he was considered a possible victim. She was never charged with his murder.
Yeah. So on October the 2nd, 1987, Vera Faye Martin, who was 61 at the time, was sent to live with Dorothea. And sometime around October 5th, 1987, Dorothea began forging a number of her Social Security checks, which totaled over $7,000. On October 19th, 1987, Mrs. Martin failed to contact her daughter on her birthday, which she'd done every year. So in November of 1988, Mrs. Vera Faye Martin's body was found buried under a metal shed in Dorothea's yard. Toxicology reports of her brain and liver revealed fluorazepam. So codeine and fluorazepam have been present in nearly every one of these so far. And that brings us to October the 21st, 1987. You want to read that one?
Oh, do you want me to? I thought you were going to.
No,
October the 21st,
yeah,
1987. Dorothy Miller, she was 65, and she was placed in an upstairs a flat in Miss Puente's home, and she introduced Miller to Ricardo. Oh, how did you say this?
Or Dorothea.
Okay. And the following November,
Ordorica, guys. Sorry.
Became the representative payee for Miller's Social Security benefits. Just weeks after her arrival, she had disappeared, and on November the 20th of 1987, Puente hired a carpet cleaner to remove a large pile of foul-smelling slime in Miller's room.
She let her rot there.
Puente continued to forge Miss Miller's checks totaling over $11,000 after she was no longer at her house. Her remains were later discovered buried under a slab of concrete near some rose bushes. Tissue samples from Miss Miller's brain revealed the presence of carbamazepine and fluorazepam.
Whew. Where's she getting all this? She just...
I don't think I'm...
I do not... you would think, I don't know, maybe these people are so downtrodden, you would think that they would get that bad vibe kind of thing.
Yeah, after a while, I would be thinking, I don't want to go there. So many people have died.
So on November 29th, 1987, Brenda Trujillo was sent a letter to the Social Security office, in Sacramento, and she accused Dorothea of stealing her Social Security checks totaling $3,500. Trujillo had met Dorothea in the Sacramento County Jail in 1982, and the two later shared a prison cell. After her release, Trujillo moved into Dorothea's boarding house, where Dorothea helped her apply for Social Security benefits. And Brenda Trujillo claimed that Dorothea drugged her, called her parole officer, caused her parole to be revoked before Trujillo received the checks.
Oh my goodness!
She didn't care. She wasn't partial. She wasn't partial.
And in February of 1988, Alvaro Burke Gonzalez Montoya, 51, arrived at Puente's home. In March, an application designating Dorothea as Montoya's benefits payee was filed. At the end of August, a roommate saw a man cleaning Montoya's clothes out of the closet. He had missed an appointment on August 29th and was last seen on August 24th. She had told several people that Montoya went to Mexico to visit his relatives. Social workers continued to attempt to contact Montoya in September and October to no avail. And in November, Montoya asked Donald Anthony, a former convict who had been working in her yard, to contact the social worker, pretending to be Montoya's brother-in-law. He agreed and called, stating his name was Michael Obregon and that he picked up Montoya from the F Street house and took him to Utah. And she's got it all going on, don't she?
She's got it planned out. So the Social Security worker who was suspicious told Dorothea she was going to call the police. And on November 10th, the social worker received a letter reportedly from Michael Obregon, wrapped in a paper towel to avoid fingerprints. Days later, Montoya's body was found buried adjacent to a carpenter. Toxicology reports, once again,
the presence of
flurazepam,
diphenhydramine,
amitriptyline,
and carbamazepine. He had prescriptions, all of the drugs except for the carbamazepine. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, she would do it up to you, wouldn't she?
Oh,
Woo!
Yes.
All right. So Benjamin Fink, who was 55 at the time, on March 9th, 1988, was also sent to live with Miss Dorothea. His brother, Benjamin's brother, visited him on a weekly basis for 6 weeks. By the end of April, Benjamin Fink was gone. Another attendant reported smelling a foul odor coming from his room, but was told by Dorothea that it was just a sewer backup, just on your part of the house, I guess. On April 29th, Dorothea received 12 bags of cement. That June, she had a hole dug next to the door of the metal shed, which she later filled in with concrete. In November, Benjamin Fink's body was discovered in this area, wrapped in plastic, knotted bedspread, secured with duct tape, and covered with blood-absorbent towels. So she does them all the same way.
Yep. There's presence of flurazepam, loxapine, and amitriptyline.
Yes, sir, boy. She's keeping all their medicine and just drugging the shit out of them.
Yeah. She was arrested on November the 7th. Well, no. Sorry. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm ready for her to be gone.
Well, that's where we're at. We're up to her arrest. She was arrested on November 7th.
No, police spoke with John Sharp on November 7th.
Oh, okay.
A former resident about the disappearance of Montoya. Initially, Sharp told the police that he had seen Montoya 2 days earlier, but then he slipped a note to the officer that said, "She wants me to lie to you."
Well, I wonder how he made it out alive.
He was slick.
Was he that sharp? Was John Sharp sharp?
He had to be. He wasn't named like that, don't you think?
Either that or he didn't have a damn dime to his name.
And she won't gonna give him nothing. So And then he later met with an officer to tell his story. On November the 11th of 88, a detective returned to Miss Puente's residence and, with her permission, began digging in areas that appeared to be recently disturbed.
Well, that's all over the whole damn yard.
Well, 30 minutes later, he discovered that first body. Just hours after a body was discovered in her backyard, she slipped away from the police. Do you know how she did that?
How?
She see what I read. She said, am I going to be arrested? They didn't have enough right at that second. They had discovered what they thought was a tree trunk, but they didn't know for sure. It was actually a bone. But
and she said with all the news crews accumulating,
she was anxiety
and wanted a cup of coffee or something like that.
And they let her go to walk down to this coffee shop, and she slipped away, and she was gone
just
for 6
slip away.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So All Points Bulletin was issued for Dorothea. And on November 16th, 1988.
Well, first of all, we were jumping way ahead.
Are we?
Yes, we are, because right now I was just telling about she'd give permission to let them dig in her yard. That's when she was getting nervous.
But we found 2 bodies so far.
Okay, well, that's when they put out an all-pound. Okay, excuse me.
So, on November 16th, 1988, Charles Wilgus, I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure along with Gene Silver of CBS, alerted police that Dorothea's whereabouts were at a motel in Los Angeles. Wilgus had met her, Miss Dorothea. She was using the alias Donna Johansson. They had met the day before at a nearby bar, and this is what you were talking about earlier. This is the fella. He later recalled seeing her on a CBS morning broadcast, but they had met and had drinks and talked, and she talked to him about moving in and had got him primed to sign over his Social Security benefits.
Yep.
And he later recalled seeing her on the morning news, and he reached out to Gene Silver, who met with him later that day at his apartment. And then the two contacted the local law enforcement, and Dorothea was arrested.
Was arrested that same day.
Yep. Tell us a little bit about her trial and conviction.
On November 17th, she was flown from the Hollywood Burbank Airport to Sacramento and escorted by police and booked in the county jail. She was then formally charged with the murder of Montoya. Criminal charges against Flores were dismissed due to the statute of limitations expiring 3 years after Gilman's body was discovered. Flores was later granted immunity for his testimony against Puente.
So on March 31st, 1989, an amended complaint was filed charging Dorothea Puente with 9 counts of murder with special circumstance. It qualified it as a death penalty case. According to investigators, most of her victims had been drugged until they were overdosed. Dorothea then wrapped them in bed sheets, plastic linen, and duct tape, having them drugged to open pits in the backyard for burial. So it's interesting to me, she ain't done all this shit by herself. You know, I know she was a little old lady, but she pretended to be much older. But at the end of the day,
she had help. I think that Flores, he was a little bit more.
Yeah, and or the other guy too, the Orb Dorica. So,
Yeah.
I was so worried about pronouncing her name that I didn't even look up how to pronounce their name. So
I know. We are so sorry.
So she would drag them to open pits for burial in the backyard. By May 24th, 1990, the prosecutor rested his case for the preliminary hearing to determine whether the case could proceed to trial, having called 71 witnesses and introducing 108 exhibits. It was on June 19th, 1990, a judge ruled that there was ample circumstantial evidence to send Miss Dorothea Puente to trial. And on July 31st, 1990, Dorothea Puente pleaded not
guilty.
And
then after numerous delays on October 19th, 1992, a judge ruled that Miss Puentes would face all 9 murder counts and that all cases would be heard in Monterey County. And on December 21st of 92, 12 jurors consisting of 8 men and 4 women were selected for Miss Puente's trial. The following month, 6 alternate jurors, 5 women and 1 man, were selected to back up the 12 regular jurors.
Dorothea's trial began on March 9th, 1993. By the conclusion of the trial, 156 witnesses had testified. More than 3,100 exhibits had been submitted, and over 22,000 pages of transcript were recorded. They deliberated for 11 days, and on August the 2nd, 1993, the jury told Judge Michael J. Varaga that they were deadlocked on all 9 counts of murder, and they wanted further instruction. The next day, Varaga ordered the jury to resume their efforts to break the deadlock.
Yeah, and then, on August the 26th, 1993, Puente was convicted on 3 counts of murder: Benjamin Fink, Lenora Carpenter, and Dorothy Miller. The jury, after deliberating for 35 days, remained deadlocked on 6 cases: Ruth Monroe, Everson Theodore Gilmuth, Betty Ann Palmer, James Gallup, Vera Mae Martin, and Alvaro Gonzalez Montoya.
So during the penalty phase of the trial, jurors found themselves deadlocked again. And on October 13th, 1993, Dorothea Puente was spared the death penalty. But on December the 10th, 1993, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She was incarcerated at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California.
Well.
Then on March 28th, 1987, an appellate court in San Jose affirmed Dorothea's murder convictions but ordered an examination of juror misconduct allegations. And after a 3-day hearing, it was determined on September 25th, 1998, Judge William D. Curtis rejected each allegation of jury misconduct in Puente's trial.
Miss Puente, she died in prison at Chowchilla on the 27th of March, 2011. She was 82 years old, and she died from something what she gave them no choice to die from, natural causes.
Yeah, that's something. You know, it's interesting. In one of her interviews, she made the comment, "I was a good person once."
When?
In one of her interviews.
But when was she a good person?
Yeah, I guess when she was little. I don't know.
Yeah.
She's been featured on many true crime television shows, several But it's interesting to note that in 1998, Dorothea began corresponding with Shane Bugbee. The result was Cooking with a Serial Killer, which came out in 2004, which included a lengthy interview and almost 50 recipes and various pieces of prison art sent to Bugbee by convicted murderer Jody Picouli.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I'm sure if Miss Dorothea Puente is cooking, there's some other ingredients going in this.
You don't want them. You don't. No. No. You don't want that food. I sure wouldn't be eating with her. No.
I don't want any part of it.
Me neither.
Well, my dear, that concludes our podcast for today.
Yes, and we hope everybody has a fabulous
Thanks, everybody.
Like,
until
share,
next time.
subscribe.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.